Yeah, because I'm disciplined. I go to work every day, so that's why I have the money to buy this car, and other people don't. Yeah, I take responsibility for that. But that every night I get into a fight with my partner, that's because right now our circumstances are bad, or that's because of the economy or the government, or I don't know what. And then you don't take responsibility, and then you think this is random. You think some parts of your life are random and some parts of you're responsible for. But if you act as if you are responsible for everything, then you gain a new perspective, which is very interesting, because then you could ask yourself, why would I do that?
All of a sudden, it's not about healing anymore. Then it's all about building a relationship with whatever is there. And then the result of that often is that people find the core wound actually was something that brought me to manifest great things in my life. The core wound is what made me empathic. The core wound was helping me achieve my goals. The core wound was, for example, if there's the archetype of the wounded healer. If I didn't have my core wound, I probably wouldn't have this podcast here.
Welcome to the Spiritual Bypassers podcast today with me and Tim. And we talked about an amazing concept that is really, really powerful when you try to investigate your own life, which is the concept of the core wound. We talked about why it's actually not a wound, but more an imprint and a gift, and can lead you to the highest quest in life, almost like your hero's journey. We talked about very vulnerably, actually, how it is affecting our personal lives, what our core wounds is, how we made it conscious, and how we are still continuing to make it conscious, and also how to heal it and really harvest the potential of it. And we gave you, like, on one hand, really precise steps on how you can work on that within your own body and in your own life. But on the other hand, also like looking at it more from a bigger perspective and bringing together spirituality and real healing work and the pitfalls of all of that. So, as always, a very exciting experience to listen to this podcast. Hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned until the end. See you on the other side. Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Bypassers podcast today with me, myself, Jannick, and Tim. Welcome, Tim.
Hello.
Good to be back. Last week I was on a break, and this is one of the first episodes where we decided we want to do more of those one-on-one episodes to really be able to go deep with each other. So what you will see from now on is that either me and Tim, or me and Ashley, or Tim and Ashley will be recording episodes, just the two of us or them. And yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to give those episodes a new dynamic and a new depth. And Tim and I were discussing before this podcast what would be a nice thing to start this off with. And we came up with this amazing concept, this amazing idea that is also very applicable to everyone's life, to understand our own trauma better and our own behavior, and maybe the things, the blockages, the situations that we run into over and over again. And this concept is the concept of the core wound. Wow, core wound. That sounds powerful. So maybe we start off with a little definition of what this thing called core wound might be. So yeah, Tim, I'd be interested. What is your understanding of this term, core wound?
So the core wound is not a single thing. Like the core wound is a concept that it has many different facets, and it's very, very intimate and very personal. So there is no such thing as the core wound that everyone has. The core wound is more like an umbrella term for whatever we experience in childhood that is traumatic and that is cutting us off from our felt sense of being a human. That is my definition. Like in childhood, we face certain experiences that objectify us and that make us think, I'm actually no human that is seen in my humanness. And I have, for example, feelings that are emerging from me. I have certain behaviors that are coming up that I want to express, that are my expression of humanness in that moment. And these are met with contempt, with punishment, with distaste, or just with numbness or being overlooked. And what's happening there is that these parts of us that we wanted to express and that didn't get seen or didn't get welcomed in our holding environment as children, they get suppressed. They get stored in the basement, and instead of in the place of that behavior steps a false self. So that's our adaptive personality. So the way we, for example, people pleasing is such a thing, where we repress our rage. We store it in the basement because rage, we learned it's not good. Conflict is unhealthy, and conflict leads to punishment, pain, and being left alone and whatnot. So what do we do in order to not face conflict? We become really, really nice in order to not face that threat. And this is how the core wound gets covered up with behavior that is often also rewarded in society. For example, workaholics also embody the consequences of a core wound, but they're not in touch with it. They're actually covering it up, and they're covering it up with behavior that leads them to be somewhat appreciated. Like if you're nice, people will tell you, "Oh, you're so nice," or "You're working so hard," or "Wow, you lifted this and that much weight." It's like there's recognition in there, but it's coming from a wound that's being covered. So, and that core wound is running in the background. Oftentimes, it's not conscious, and one of the paths towards becoming more like ourselves and more authentic is to strip away everything that's not authentic, and that is most of the times painful, because what's lurking underneath, what's really going on, is pain that hasn't been witnessed. And this is the core wound. It's oftentimes not pleasant, not what we think we get rewarded for. It's a deep pain that needs witnessing, and that is very hard to face for basically everyone.
Yeah, this is an essential part to me of the healing process that you just described, almost like peeling off layers of an onion, where you go through these layers, which are like representing, like you said, pain, grief, anger, some form of emotion that we have almost like disintegrated, that we've put away, that we've decided shouldn't be a part of us. They are covered and protected by layers of fear, of shame, of guilt. And so our system has become really good at not looking there, at staying safe, so to say. So our system and our mind is always thriving for safety. So everything we do will always be the things that we consider safe. And this is the opposite direction. This is the direction of fear, so to say, towards the core wound, to shed through those layers. And I even want to go like one step further with my understanding of the core wound, goes even beyond the imprints, so to say, which is for me just another word for wound or for trauma. It's like imprints that we received or experienced during our childhood, yes. But to me, part of this concept is that there is no real beginning or end of this core wound. It's almost like a theme that runs through your life, and it's fractal. It can be found in a period of your life. It can be found in a part of your body. It can be found in the way your birth went. It can be found in your relationship to your mother. It can be found everywhere, and it's almost like repeating itself, and it's like a theme, or this in German we say this red line that is running through your whole life. And then there's authors and people and psychoanalysts who go like further and further into the past, because the more we go into the past, the more it feels like we are coming to the root, right? And then it's like, oh, childhood must be the root. And then you're like, oh, maybe early childhood when you're a baby, that's the root. And there you don't even have memory, but still the experiences were the root. Or then, or maybe it was birth, or maybe it was prenatal. It was in the womb of your mother where everything happened. Or maybe it was even in a past life. Maybe that's the core root of this theme. And I believe that, yes, the deeper you go, probably the more direct, the more of a direct connection you can find. But at the same time, it's not really something that is personal to you. It's almost like archetypal. So there are these different kind of themes that then one of those things, or many of those themes, they will apply to your life in your very personal, specific way. Yeah. So to make it more concrete, maybe your birth took a long time. Maybe the process of your birth was like, I don't know, 24 hours or so, and you like for a long time you were there in the birth canal, and maybe some part of your body was really like painful during that time, and then this is almost like an imprint, right? Your life starts with this, so your life will also become about compensating what happened there. So it's a lot like your whole life, you could say, is determined by a form of compensation of your core wound. So it's and core wound is something negative, right? But it can also be a core principle or a core theme or a core imprint that you had. And then it will become about that. And there has been a lot of research, and maybe we'll go deeper into that. Also, a lot of experiential research, for example, with the help of psychedelics, to get into other states of consciousness around this, to explore this more. But yeah, this is just like some things I'd like to add from my perspective to this concept of the core wound.
Yeah, and I think what we can say at this point is that trauma / the core wound is not necessarily something that is in the past, but that is very much in the present. And that is restaging itself over and over again. It's almost like a director that is playing the same episode of the same season over and over again with different actors in a different environment, but the script remains the same. And this is why we don't necessarily need to dig in the past. It's more like the past through embodiment is revealing itself automatically. Like the analytic standpoint would be, we sit down and we analyze your past. We like, your mom did this, your mom did this, and then we get to a conclusion. But the body holds something that is called implicit memory, which means that it literally stores memory that is semi-available to the conscious mind. And it gets activated and becomes actualized when we focus on the body, when we get in touch with the body. That is why psychosomatic work is so maybe revolutionary or so new or different to the analytic approach, because we know that trauma is happening in the present moment. It can be accessed through the body, and through that, the memories are revealing themselves. So rather than us looking for the memories and looking into the past is coming to us through our body. That our body is like, we open the door to the past through our body, and we are witnessing what is revealing there, all in the present moment. So the body is almost like a bridge from past through to present. And Thomas Hübel, who I like very much, said that it's about digesting the past in the present moment. And that's very much what's happening when we look at the core wound. And it's always like Jannick said, it's always like a fractal, some tension in the neck, something like very mundane and seemingly unimportant, like a tension in the neck, could be part of a really, really large fractal that is opening up a huge narrative that is restaging. All of a sudden, this tension in the neck is also restaging as this and that relationship conflict, this and that relationship to money, whatever, or this and that belief. And then all of a sudden, it's not only about just a tension in the neck, then it's about like a pattern, an archetype, a part of you, also in IFS language, that you are blended with, that has taken over, and that is trying to knock on your door and getting your attention.
Yeah. Yeah. Very beautifully said. It's like the present moment is all we need in order to access that um, this fragmented part of ourselves, like this. Even to find out something about your core wound, you don't have to do much. You don't have to dig in your past. You just sit here right now and you witness what's happening. Or you can also just look at your life. How's your life? How do you think about your life? How do you live your life? And it reveals so much, because none of that is random. It's like, just act as if you are 100% responsible for the way your life is. And then at some point you will realize it's not acting, it's actually true. Yeah, you are 100% responsible. It's just that you own some of those parts. It's easy for you. It's like, yeah, because I'm disciplined. I go to work every day, so that's why I have the money to buy this car, and other people don't. Yeah, I take responsibility for that. But that every night I get into a fight with my partner, that's because of her or him, or that's because right now our circumstances are bad, or that's because of the economy or the government, or I don't know what. And then you don't take responsibility, and then you think this is random. You think some parts of your life are random and some parts of you're responsible for. But if you act as if you are responsible for everything, then you gain a new perspective, which is very interesting, because then you could ask yourself, why would I do that? If I'm really 100% responsible for everything that happens in my life, why on a bigger scale would I do that? And the author of Existential Kink, Carolyn Lovewell, she does an amazing job explaining this with her own words. And if you do an existential kink meditation or you read her book, you will find her say something like, imagine you are this infinitely powerful being. And this infinitely powerful being is very bored at some point of its infinite power and getting everything at once. So it wants to incarnate as something else, as something limited. So it does incarnate as you. And from this perspective, this infinite celestial powerful being is 100% responsible for being the way it is and living the life that it does, like you do. Because it's like, with its infinite power, it's manifesting itself as exactly who you are and what you are. And if you do this, you basically step into the perspective of this infinite powerful being, which is like a very useful perspective in your life to have. And then you find out, okay, these are like almost like the themes that I want to live my life by. Like, this is the kind of lack that I want to experience. This is the kind of guilt that I want to experience. Ooh. And then she goes on and she's like, you actually love it. And you can actually take on the perspective that you love it. You love to feel guilty if you don't do what your partner tells you to do. Or you love to feel guilty when you flirt with somebody else and then you come home and you don't tell it. And you love this because it's highly sensational. It's highly sensational. And this way you get a new perspective on your wound, on your imprint, on who you are and your limitations and what you're afraid of.
Yeah. I'm like, whenever it comes to concepts like this, I'm a bit torn, because there's also legitimate suffering where I'm pretty sure of two things. First is, the person is not fully responsible for the suffering. We're also talking from and I don't want to make this too political, but I think it's accurate and it's important to mention if we want to get as close to the truth as possible. There's also a context in which each person is embedded in. And when I'm in, or when someone is in a traumatic environment, for example, war or extreme poverty or whatever household they're trapped in, whatever things could be, then this is, to me, not fully applicable. So I think the notion of you're fully responsible for your trauma is very empowering, and I like it a lot, and it's for most people very healing, because this wound of being a victim happened in a time where you actually were a victim. Because a child, for example, is by definition dependent on their caregiver. And if the child consciousness carries wounds that are carried into adulthood, of course, it will still be in this place of dependence and victimhood, and I can't do anything about it. So I agree with you, and also I think it's very nuanced and important to look at the perspective from, and the consciousness and the circumstances, the social context we are embedded in, from which we're speaking. But what I want to add to that is that it all has to do with relationship. Like if I could summarize what the core wound is very, very simply, it's a rupture, a disconnection in a relationship that is um, really important, most of the times even important to survive. And that relationship was ruptured, was cut off by a lack of empathy, a lack of connection, a lack of the ability to see and be with someone else. May that be through abuse or through not seeing the child properly, not giving them the proper feedback, not being there as a parent, whatever, or having traumatic situations that happened later on in life. It all has to do with relationships, and thus, if you want to look at and heal the core wound, I think it's important to look at the relational patterns, not only in the people you are spending your time with, but also how you relate to yourself, how you relate to the world, and how that band, that string that connects you and the world and the environment and all of the parts within you is constituted. Because that's where the trauma usually takes place, in the space in between you and the world.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. And this is also coming back to the title of the podcast, Spiritual Bypassers. This is where I see a lot of bypassing is you go into the spiritual literature and events and ideas, and you disconnect actually from your relationships, the relationship that you have with your father, with your mother, with the version of your father and your mother that you carry inside of you from childhood. Because a lot of times it's not so much about the current relationship. It can be very different from the one that you had in childhood. But like, are you actually in touch with that relationship? And are you actually grounded in reality when you do your spirituality and when you come up with all these concepts? And it's the same for us. Like, we can sit here and talk a lot about this because we have a lot of knowledge about trauma, and we've read about it a lot in our life, and we've also experienced some sessions. But there's a huge difference between speaking about it or actually embodying it and being here in the moment, talking about like the real life embodiment of it. And just this morning I had like a very powerful a morning practice about this, where I was really like, okay, how grounded are my ideas right now? How much am I really embodying them? And then I just come back and I'm like, if I go up to my partner right now and I stand in front of my partner, how does my body feel? How would my body feel right now? And then I I value that information, like you said earlier, much more than any spiritual idea of, wow, right now, like it's like existential kink, I'm this powerful being. And yeah, it creates some nice sensations inside of me. But I always want to have my roots deep down in the relationships, like you say, and those relationships are just a great indicator for how much impact does the work really have that you do. So I step up, or I imagine stepping up to her, and I'm like, oh, my heart feels tense, or below my heart I feel a tension, and it's like this inward contraction. So immediately I turn towards that, and I see, like, how can I be there for this sensation? What does it need? What does it say? And maybe it says, oh, right now I feel disconnection. We didn't have the kind of connecting conversations and moments together that we did in the past weeks. And I dive into that, and then what does this sensation remind me of? Is there a need that I need her to fulfill in me? And then I'm like, oh, this feels like when my mom left without saying goodbye. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting a bit closer to the need that this almost like child part in me has right there. And then I'm like, oh, okay, how do I feel? What does it say about me? Maybe it says I'm lonely. And then, oh, okay, I feel lonely right now. And I can be with myself, and I can be with my loneliness. And this kind of self-exploration is, to me, in my opinion, this is turning towards truth and facing the core wound. And it's also not very comfortable. Like, I don't do this because it's comfortable and I love to have some spiritual ideas. I do this because I have this deep drive to go towards truth. And I let that guide me in my self-exploration.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's very much about being honest with oneself. And that is way, way easier said than done. Like, it's so hard to be honest with yourself, because if you were honest to yourself, you would get in touch, maybe, with the pain that is so big that you wouldn't be able to carry it by yourself. And that is also why a therapy works, why emotional release works, why getting help or even talking to a friend works, because you're not alone in that anymore, and you have a empathic, mirroring other that is witnessing you and that is helping you, holding whatever tension you have. Because what you just said was, you sit down and basically you are compassionate towards whatever pain is within you, and you are maybe even compassionate towards being uncompassionate towards yourself, like being empathetic and heart open towards being not heart open. And then this reminds me very much about of IFS, the things we talk about now, because then you get in touch with the self as it's spoken about in IFS. And this is where like many people get spirituality kind of wrong, because it's not about feeling good all the time. Yes, it's about compassion. Yes, it's about empathy, and yes, it's about love. But it's try loving something that is extremely dark, extremely hard to carry. That's not spiritual soul flight up in the air. Let's raise our vibration. This is going downwards. This is going downwards and going into the cave with your torch of truth, torch of consciousness, and also with an open heart. And that is ultimately what is causing the healing. And you can do that either yourself, if you have the capacity, and if you're brave enough, or you can go with someone else that maybe has like a bit of a brighter torch and is able to go down into the dumps with you. And you can escape both ways. In Jungian therapy, spirit is everything that is ascending upwards, like the high vibration, the ideas, also the childlike enthusiasm. And soul is everything that is reaching downwards into the depth. And it's not only shadow, but it's also like the meaningful questions of life, all the more gritty stuff. And you can escape both ways. You can escape into the shadow and become really broody and overthink and or like become inflated and fascinated with whatever philosophical ideas and get like this really broody and deep and pretentious person. That's more what I was in the or what my pattern is. Or you could flee into the heights, and that's where most spiritual bypassing is happening. You can cover your wound with love and light, or you can cover your wound with darkness and being like this shadow worker and doing the deep and gritty stuff. And it's
Yeah.
all an escape from what is actually wants to be witnessed. And I think the truth, as so many times, lies in the middle, when spirit and soul are actually meeting. Because I also think we need these higher energies, these transpersonal states, these inspirations, enthusiasm, and love, actually, and compassion. All of these higher things are very much needed in order to heal. Like, we promote a lot of shadow work here on this channel, and we sort of bash spirituality, but spirituality becomes deep and accurate if it's met, if these both poles are meeting in the middle. And that's really important. That's really important to acknowledge, to neither escape to one of both, but to actually meet, let them both meet.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, to me, spirituality is almost the biggest resource you can imagine, because it's the reason why people are fleeing there and want to go there is that there's everything is light and love, right? Like, in an ultimate sense, it's there everything is just good the way it is, perfection, just acceptance. And it's almost like the brightness of the light that then, though, you can use to as your resource to look at the darkness and look at the shadows. And so if you just stay there, it's not really worth anything, because it's not really lightening anything up. But if you are there and you take that big light and you look with this big light into your soul, like you just described in Jungian therapy, then your soul lights up. And then that's like the real beauty, the incarnation, or in Existential King, she calls it the alchemical marriage. It's like when you marry those two worlds together, then you become this powerful expression, not just in the world of ideas, but actually in real life, in manifestation. You actually manifest powerful expression in
Yes,
terms of whatever that is you want to change.
yes, exactly. And when we talk about identifying and healing the core wound, it's very important to have this marriage happen, the marriage between intuition, reclaiming the body, trusting the symptoms of the body, and its movements, its tensions, its hunches that it's also giving us, and our intellect. Like, neither of both is to be like, it's the solution is not to meditate away the intellect and meditate away understanding, meditate away all this wealth of internal images that comes up when we're also concentrating on the body. Neither is it bypassing the body. Both doesn't work. So both have to be married in order to heal this. So to be really precise, how would you say, or to summarize maybe, how would you say can we identify and heal this core wound, like very practically? What are some things that can be done?
Yeah. So the first thing is in my opinion, don't see the core wound as something that you have to heal, more like as your personal imprint of who you are and what determines the way you express yourself in this reality. This is the first step, because this is non-pathologizing. This is almost like already a shift in perspective towards more compassion and love towards yourself. So it's like, oh, interesting. I have this, like, yes, there is a theme in my life. How can I best love it? How can I make love to it in the best way possible? That's like the approach almost. And then it doesn't become about it needing to get rid of it, because needing to get rid of it is already like down the path. It's already an unconscious expression of your core wound. It's not healing the core wound in any way. And then the second step is becoming conscious. So if you start off and you don't have a lot of awareness, start doing body scan meditations, like really get in touch with your body, because like you said earlier, Tim, it's all there. It's all here right now. And the more you learn to be aware of what is, the more information will come through to you, will be made available to you. And then if you're already sensitive, or you're already good at like sensing that, there might be the other side of it, which is being too sensitive, and like every little energy and emotion will already like dysregulate you, so you can't really access the information that way either. So then learn nervous system regulation, learn like breathing, learn just like sitting with it, tapping into it and then tapping out of it, so that you really have a sense of, oh, I'm in control of this. Like one time in an ayahuasca trip, the plant medicine showed me was like the warrior decides by himself when he wants to go to war and when he wants to like stay at home and be in peace. So take this with you. It's like you decide. It's not the energies controlling you and telling you, oh, now I need to go in there. No, you can regulate yourself and you can like go in and out. So that's the second and the third step, depending on what your tendency is. And then harvest. The next step is to harvest the information that's there, because now you have everything you need. You're sensitive and you can hold big energies because you know how to regulate yourself and you know how to listen to your body. Now you harvest the information. You almost like become this curious, explorative child that is exploring your inner world and your body. And you're like, wow, there's this tension in my chest every time I'm in front of my mother. Okay, what can I do? And then you learn the tools that we teach in emotional release, or in parts work, in IFS, in somatic experiencing, in what Gabor Mate does with a compassionate inquiry, whatever. You use any somatic inquiry technique to harvest the information that are there. They will come up to the surface and then process the emotions, because there you will be confronted, like you said in the beginning, with painful or intense, you could also say intense, or surrounded by fear, shame, guilt. We will be confronted with these kind of emotions, and they want to be witnessed and expressed. So be there for them, express them, witness them. And don't expect anything to happen out of it. Just for the sake of expressing them, for the sake of loving them, for the sake of experiencing them, be there with them. Any attempt to do it so that you will reach another state is already, again, a moving away from it. It's like, I don't want it, okay, but if I don't want it, I need to go through it and then I will get rid of it. It doesn't work like that. And that's actually the whole healing process, like trusting that. And you more and more you will integrate those parts and become more and more whole, and a whole, authentic, alive expression of yourself.
Yes, I would subscribe to that 100%, and underline the parts work aspect, because I think IFS, especially for everyone who's not too deep into somatic work, is probably the best self-inquiry tool there is. It's just absolutely incredible, and also such an accurate map of our internal experience. So whenever the core wound is at play, you could almost say that it's not you who's carrying the core wound. It's a part of you that's carrying the core wound. And this part is pulling the strings. This part is in some moments, it's taking over the control center of your consciousness, of your life, and it will dictate how you will behave according to his or her beliefs and narratives. So getting into IFS, unblending from that part, and having literal conversations with that part that your body will also respond to, also a highly embodied process, is very, very informative, very easy, and a direct entrance into the world of healing the core wound, or healing in general. And then all of a sudden, it's not about healing anymore. Then it's all about building a relationship with whatever is there. And then the result of that often is that people find the core wound actually was something that brought me to manifest great things in my life. The core wound is what made me empathic. The core wound was helping me achieve my goals. The core wound was, for example, if there's the archetype of the wounded healer. If I didn't have my core wound, I probably wouldn't have this podcast here. And the part that is carrying the wound also carries tremendous potential that wants to be actualized and wants to be brought to the surface. And it's like the core wound is a piece of cloth that is covering that part's inherent potential. And if we take that away, we're like, oh, this part was sort of shining the whole time. But if we take that cloth away, it can shine even brighter and make our life even more meaningful. So it's not about healing that part. It's more about reclaiming the power that part is carrying and embodying, and seeing it for what it is. And I think it's really important, because the term healing is thrown around like so much, especially like since trauma therapy and like somatics and all of this is becoming on vogue. But to me, healing is not healing the core wound necessarily, or healing a part necessarily, healing the body necessarily. It's always healing the relationship. It's always about, can I relate to whatever is happening in my life with a calm, open heart? And if that's not the case, then I'm probably blended with something that wants to be seen in this exact light. And then always to shed the layers, to go deeper on the onion, and always ask myself, can I allow, like in emotional release language, can I allow this? Can I be open-hearted towards that? Can I be curious about that? That's the way. And the indicator of a core wound is, most of the times, or a part that is carrying a core wound or any wounding, is the inability to do that. Like the inability to hold the relationship in a warm and open-hearted space.
Yeah, very beautifully said. And I want to add to that what you said. The core wound is like your potential. It's almost like it's almost like a pregnant part of you that wants to and has the ability to birth something. And when you become conscious of it, you can birth wonderful things with it. And when you're unconscious of it, the more unconscious you are, the more unconsciously it will birth stuff. It never stops birthing. It never stops creating. It never stops expressing something in your life. It's just that you're almost like not conscious of what exactly that is. Like Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. And this is exactly what's happening there. And then you make it conscious, and you allow it to rule your life, but on a completely different level, with a completely new perspective.
Yes, exactly. And in that way, I'm on board with what you said in the beginning, that I was, partly disagreeing with, but that's the moment where we reclaim ownership and creatorship, for the lack of a better word, for our life. Because if that part that carries the wound is not dictating and pulling the strings, and something that is more close to our heart is pulling the strings, something that is more conscious, then it's very logical that from that emerges more self-ownership, more choices, more openness, less stress, and things like this. And we have a choice, because if we're blended with a part, it's one of the symptoms of a core wound, or of a when we're blended with a wounded part, is that we have no choice. We have to do that. It will stay like that forever. And in unblending from that, we learn that that's not true. And we actually have a choice, and we can live a life that is beautiful and meaningful if we want to.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good finishing statement of the conversation. I think we can leave it here, right, Jannick?
We could, but I want to end with something exciting, which is let's for a moment share what we like, just in this moment, what we know about our personal core wound, because I like to make things practical, and the core wound is something that we talked about in this episode, but it's also very conceptual at the same time. So just to give maybe two examples, yours and mine, without talking about it too much, but just like, it doesn't have to be complete or like a whole analysis of the last, I don't know how many years we've been in the healing space, in the somatic healing space, but just to give an impression of how would that look like what's the utility almost of this concept of the core wound.
So for me, my core wound and is abandonment. And it's really interesting when I look at my life. There's been multiple moments. I've been doing this recently, like looking into the basement, writing everything down, writing my life story down with the corresponding years, doing like a deep dive. I think it's really useful to do that. And when I looked at it, I realized that there were many moments in my life where friends have betrayed me or abandoned me, and the same, happened in my family at some points. And then I could see how I have issues to really trust people in friendships and in general. My core wound is expressing itself through, I have troubles holding eye contact. I sometimes feel dissociated in social environments. And I sometimes have really irrational thoughts of things will either not work out, like life will abandon me, life will betray me, or certain people will betray me, like they don't like me, they don't really appreciate me, and this will go downhill, and life will just turn out to be terrible, because that's the way it went several times in my life. And it's the prophecy is always fulfilling itself over and over again. And the way I treat this is really, in the first place, through consciousness, like becoming aware of it, also being humble that this is a pattern that is playing out within me. And most of the times, through uncovering that pattern, the moment it happens, it's already a relief, because it's seen in that moment. I'm not blended with it. It's almost like I'm like, there's a little Tim in me that is like screaming for attention and that wants to be seen. And in unblending from that, and noticing, oh, I'm in that pattern again, I'm in that behavior again, I'm automatically putting the boy here, looking at him, he feels seen, and I feel better. And at the same time, there's moments where this is not sufficient, and this is where I either get help, when it's really like when it's really, really extreme, I call someone, I talk to my partner, or I see a therapist. And when it's more, a mild activation of the inner critic or of my inner voices that are telling me that the future is doomed and relationships are doomed, then I consult that part. I literally sit down, I talk to it. I like going for walks. I put on my headphones and act as if I'm having a phone call with someone. But in reality, like my headphones aren't even connected. And I'm literally having a conversation with that part. I'm asking, hey, what's up? How are you doing? I'm seeing you. I'm like, I can see that you carry a lot of pain, and I'm here to listen. And I'm taking now 30 minutes going on a walk with you, and just tell me what's up. And the part will answer in literal words. I mean, I have a quite creative mind, so it's very easy for me to access this. And it sounds kind of crazy if you never heard of this, but it works because the voices are in our heads anyways all the time. So might as well have a conversation with them. And this is where things get easier for me, and where, again, I'm building a relationship. I'm telling this part of me, hey, I'm not escaping through scrolling on my phone or whatever. I'm here for you and I'm willing to listen. And then the part tells me what it needs. And then I either literally do what it needs. If it needs time for itself, and I'm like, okay, so we quit all the plans for tonight and we just hang out by ourselves. Part is maybe happy. Or I do a ritual together with the part where I don't know, I bury something either in my mind or in real life, or I burn something either in my mind or in real life that the part wants to have burned. So this is how I go about things. And when I talk to the part, it's very, very somatic. Like it's almost like I'm talking with my body, because the Ken Wilber called it the subtle body. And the subtle body is like all the energetics. It's what you feel in your body when you close your eyes, like this field of energy or whatever. It's hard to describe, in your body and in your mind through your vision. According to Ken Wilber, it's the same thing, and that's also how I experience it. It's very like you're talking to your parts and your body simultaneously, because they're like the same thing basically.
Beautiful.
So what's your
What's your
your
core
way
wound?
of dealing with your particular wound?
Thank you for sharing that, Tim. I felt with you while you were sharing that. And yeah, and one thing before I start, I'd like to add is, Tim said, yeah, my core wound is around abandonment. And then people might be like, yeah, isn't that everybody's core wound? And just important to mention that, yeah, there is in all of us humans this basic conflict that Gabor Mate talks a lot about as well, between authenticity and connection. And as a child, abandonment means death. So we're like adapting to that, and so yeah, there's a fear to some degree in all of us to be rejected, and all the core wounds that we will speak about, to some degree they will be inside of you, yes, just because you're human. But it's not really about that. It's about like, find something that hits the spot for you, that's like find something that's in resonance, that's your particular personal expression of this wound. And maybe everything can be led back to the fear of death in the end. Yes, but that doesn't really matter. You can be really smart and just sit here and be like, yeah, but in the end, it's all the fear of death, because Tim, as a child, he thought when he gets abandoned, he will die. And now his system still believes that. Yeah, cool. That's probably true, but it's not really about that when we want to approach, because we want to make it practical. We want to create some real life change in our life. And for that, it doesn't really get us anywhere to just come up with these smart concepts about how human psyche works. Is it connected? And I felt that when Tim said abandonment and he was sharing, that was connected to his body, and he was sharing from his experience, not from some book content. So for me, something that hits the spot is about being a man. So a lot of my healing path has been around that, like, am I man enough? and usually the cone must be a conflict, right? So it's almost like this conflict between the man inside of me is not lovable, and I want to be a real man, and they don't, they are in conflict with each other, right? So there's this tension between those two beliefs, and then they show up in many different things. And like I said, it's fractal, right? So it can be show up when I look at my birth. It could show up as, oh, my mom thought all pregnancy that I was going to be a girl. That's one part of the fractal that fits to that core wound story. Then my first girlfriend cheated on me. Oh yeah, that fits into the story. I'm not a real man. If you're a man enough, a woman wouldn't dare to like cheat on you. But I became so feminine in a way, and that was my way to connect with women, that then this happened or whatever. Of course, you fit all the things that happen in your life into that story, and these things happen to you, and they reveal themselves to you and to me in that case. Then the other beliefs that emerge out of that: I don't make enough money, I need to make more money. I don't have enough muscles, I need to have bigger muscles. My dick is too small. Is very much related, because the size of your dick is also like very much, and what you think about your dick as a man is connected to masculinity. Not in a sense that, oh yeah, a bigger dick means I'm more masculine, but more in a way that what's your relationship, like you say, with your genitals. It says so much about you. You get so much to learn from that. So that belief. Then as well in sex, it also shows up. It's like I had uncertainty there, and like sometimes didn't get an erection because I was like too afraid. And again, the erection is a symbol of masculinity, of potency. And if it's not there, there must be a conflict there, some kind of fear that needs to be looked at. Shows up in my relationship with other men. I try to have more like woman friendship with women, and connect with women by also behaving like a woman, and then be like very empathetic and very agreeable, the nice guy, because the sense of the man in me is not lovable. Shows up as that. Yeah, these are just some examples on all like different levels: on the body level, on what happens to me, on the relational level, on the birth level, and you see that it's a theme in my life. And how do I approach it now? I know that there's a lot to grow when I look at it, when I face it, and a lot of the things I just shared, I was able to heal through the somatic work, and to change through the somatic work over time and with patience. And for example, I go into a men's circle, or then I go and lead men's circles, and I come out of the circle and I feel so much in my masculine, and I'd be like, wow, this energy has really been depleted and like not there, and now there's a lack of it, and I give myself that, and I compensate for it in many different ways, and there's more healthy and more unhealthy ways, and it's beautiful. It's the source of energy. I want to become more and more of a man in my life. What a beautiful driver of my life, to be like, how can I become more of a man, more of a man, more of a man, more of a man? I do this, I do that, I create that, I express myself in that way. I express my strength, I feel my strength in that way. And it's almost this like compass now that drives me. And it's beautiful to be driven by that compass now that I'm conscious of it.
Yeah, and so thank you for sharing that. And there's a really important lesson here that we didn't really emphasize so much in this episode, and that is that maybe you listened now to my story and Jannick's story in particular, and you can see that, quote unquote, healing the wound guides us into meaning, into a meaningful life. Because Jannick, for example, if you listen to him, it's almost like he became a hero that has been called to an adventure. Like my purpose in life, my like what gives me meaning is many things, but also it's this quest to become a real man. Like there's this task that has been given to you, and that is also what the core wound does. It, like, to me, for example, I wanted to become really safe within my body and become a really good communicator, for example, and master that. And then I went on my journey, and now I lead webinars in front of 100 people. And like 5-6 years ago, when I was really, really deep into my shit, or more like 7 years ago, I couldn't even think of that. But I knew at some point that in order to, like, on the other side of that wound, wait something that I deeply want in my life, and to attain that is the meaning, and gives my life meaning. And so far, in healing my wound and overcoming my trauma, I found so many little gifts and so many little gold nuggets that I literally alchemized it into one of the most meaningful things in my life. And that's also what I hear from Jannick, and also what I hear from you. Like, the trauma and your core wound is also a calling from life into something bigger, into something that not only wants to be healed, but something that wants to be attained. And the quest to attain that is probably the biggest adventure that is waiting for you, and also an adventure that is necessary to partake in, because the gifts that are waiting on the other side are mysterious, and will help, or what lies on the other side is more of you and more of the person that you are destined to be, sort of. Because, like, when I was in my, like, deep anxiety, or when Jannick is in his anxiety about his masculinity, it's almost like life energy has been sucked out of our bodies, and there's less presence and less wholeness, like, not wholeness as a concept, but a feeling of embodied presence within us. Like, we're just not as online when we're in that state. So in reclaiming that, and in overcoming or integrating or loving or understanding the wisdom of whatever anxiety or wound you're facing, you become more of yourself. You're just more online, you're just more present, and you become and in becoming more, it's like the puzzle pieces are being put together, and all of a sudden you have a clear and more holistic image of who you are. And I find that really fascinating, and that's a perspective that is also overlooked, and it's the opposite of what Jannick called pathologizing, because that's important to also acknowledge there is, like, a certain degree of pathology to it. Like, there is a wound, there is suffering, and then it has its root cause. All of these investigative things, really important. But then also to see that it's all of the things we talked about today, plus a call into a meaningful life, and a call into becoming who you're meant to be, which is very close to the self that we talked about. It's almost like the core wound. There's like a light within you. That's how I describe it. And there's like little plasters, like little things that are covering up that light, that have been added throughout your life, until the light maybe is not shining anymore. And what we're doing is recognizing these little plasters, these little pieces of cloth, we're removing them, and then more of our light can shine outside. And this is what Jannick describes when he comes from a men's circle, or he's holding a men's circle. All of a sudden, he's shining brighter. And everyone in his life that is well-meaning towards Jannick wants to see him in that way, because that's where he is most like himself. And the reason for that is because the survival personality, the false self, the person, like the part of him that has adapted at some point and has taken over, stepped back and let Jannick come to the forefront. And that's beautiful. And that's how everyone that loves Jannick, everyone that loves me, and everyone that loves you wants to see you shine. And the way to reclaiming your light is a great adventure, and will benefit your life in ways you can't even comprehend.
Amen.
A man.
A man.
A man.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you to our listeners. I love this episode. Very deep, beautiful, meaningful, and vulnerable as well. So hope you enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments what you think about the core wound. How does this episode make you feel and make you change your perspective maybe on this topic? We'd love to hear from you. Subscribe, give us a like if you like this episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye bye.